Stasis tuning preview for March 23rd pass. Okay, this is the meaty stuff. This is the big stuff. I think that a lot of people are waiting for, and I'm really curious as to what they're gonna do. Before we dive into the patch notes, we have a few words from the team to walk through the goals of this tuning pass. Hey everyone, gameplay team at Bungie here. We made some targeted changes to Stasis in Season 12 and wanted to see how they landed before making any more adjustments. Now that we've several weeks of data to analyze, we're ready to make some further changes to address additional pain points of Stasis and PvP. Our goal with these changes is to reduce some of the frustrations when fighting against Stasis subclasses in the Crucible, while maintaining their power and PvE content wherever possible. With that said, some changes required us to adjust the global behavior of some abilities. In the patch below, we've explicitly mentioned which changes will affect Crucible functionality only. We'll be closely monitoring ability performance and feedback as Season 13 continues. Thanks for playing, and we're excited to see how the future of Stasis unfolds. Hunter. Shatterdive. Removed damage resistance from Shatterdive. I believe we knew this was coming, but also added a 4-second between activations of Shatterdive. Let's go. That is awesome. I hope that's like 4 seconds plus 0, like it's 4-second timer and then plus 0 for 5 seconds. But either way, I am very happy to see that we got a cooldown for Shatterdive. This is awesome because I was talking about it the other day. Third person peeking, the next thing that people are going to do are start using abilities. And Shatterdive, we saw it today. I was playing in PvP and someone was sitting there repeatedly Shatterdiving over and over again. To third person, so that's really, really great. Also, if you mess up your Shatterdive, this means you have a frozen target there. You're not going to be able to go again. You're not going to be able to Shatterdive again and keep continuously trying to escape from scenarios. This is really awesome. I think that potentially this cooldown should be longer, but I'm just really happy to see a cooldown to begin with. I do think it's worth noting, like you said in the chat, Atrix, perhaps should be longer, but nonetheless, I'm happy to see a cooldown to begin with. Okay. Withering Blade. So our shurikens. Decreased Withering Blade damage against players from 90 to 65. Okay. PvE damage is unchanged. Okay, so in PvE, the shurikens are going to be just as strong damage-wise. In PvP, they're going down. I still think that damage is too high. Personally, I'd like to see it somewhere like tickle damage, like 30, if any. But, I mean, a damage reduction is nice. I still think that should be lower. I think that's still too high. Decreased Withering Blade slow stacks applied to players from 60 to 40. PvE slow stacks are unchanged. Okay, so the slow stacks, so the requirement to build up to freeze is now the same in PvE, but in PvP, it means 2 shurikens doesn't freeze anymore. That's huge. That is massive. You're not going to be able to go up to someone, double shuriken, or like fly at someone, or fail your stupid shotgun rush and double shuriken and then freeze. 2 shurikens will not freeze. It will take you on a hunter at least, dodging and then double shurikening. That is, I think, really awesome. So they're now effectively, you're gonna have to work a lot harder to freeze with them, and effectively they are mainly a slow tool. That being said, like mentioned in chat just now, slow is still insanely strong, so they're still gonna be very, very good. So again, still very strong, and they still do a considerable amount of damage, so perhaps some tinkering to the slow mechanic will help these not be as strong, but we still have a lot to read through here. Regardless, I think slow, to make these a little less good, I think the damage should go down in my opinion. Slow should be a little less impactful per se, or maybe the duration, I'm not sure. But these changes are a great start. I think the fact that you can't just double shuriken to freeze super quickly is very good. Decrease the target acquisition range of Withering Blade after it impacts a player from 12 meters to 8 meters. Range after impacting PvE enemies isn't changed. So this essentially means that its ability to track, I believe, after hitting a target, that radius from after hitting a singular target is now a lot, it's gone from 12 meters to 8 meters, so it's a lot smaller of a radius. That means they essentially have to be 8 meters is like pretty much beside each other, which is good. It's gonna be less heat seeking between targets, bouncing between them. that's great. I'm happy to see that. And then, of course, in PvE, it is unchanged. So that's good. There is nothing, though, about the tracking inherently of the shurikens. They do have some pretty heavy tracking right now. And I'm not sure if that impact means only player or a wall as well. So I'm not sure if, like, you bounce it off of a wall and then it, like, also abides by the same rules of that 12 meter to 8 meter reduction. I'm not sure. If it does, I think that's good. If not, the tracking is still pretty strong, especially on bounces. It does say after it impacts a player. Yeah, so I'm assuming it only means players. But again, we'll have to wait and see, kind of just brainstorming there. However, I do think that these are a good set of changes to start with. I think as a community generally, even though a lot of people dislike Stasis a lot more than I do, a lot of people kind of want to nerf them to the ground. I think that they're making some good steps and nerfs, and step by step, rather than massive hammer comes down. So that's good. These are a good start. Like, these changes are a good start, but I think more still needs to be done. The big things for me, like I said, is damage. It's also the perhaps the tracking a little bit overall, like even just the base tracking, and the duration of the slow effect, perhaps, or the potency of the slow effect. Okay, so really great changes, though, I think. Titan, let's see. Glacial Quake removed AoE freeze against players on Supercast. Will still freeze in PvE. That's super cool. What, they're really dividing it, which is like really awesome. I think the AoE freeze in PvP, that was really obnoxious. It was yet another thing to make the super insane. So I'm glad that's gone. Reduced damage resistance while on super from 60 to 50%. While that doesn't sound like a big number on paper, I do think we have to wait and see how that feels and plays. I believe that actually might be on the lower end of super DR, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I believe that's actually on the lower end, though. So that's good. I'm gonna have to wait and see how that feels, though. It's really hard to see 10% and be like, oh, that's not a big enough number, and not know how it feels. So really just have to wait and see how that plays and how it feels. But damage reduction reduced. I'm very happy about that. It means that high impact snipers can take out a behemoth. Yeah, that is great. Yeah. Increase the energy cost of using Shiver Strike. So I believe that's a light attack, the big mobility one, while in Glacial Quake from 3% to 7%. So that's good. That's over double increase in cost. So I think that's great. That'll help it not last an eon. Using the combo of a Shiver Strike into a heavy slam attack will now cost the full super energy of both the Shiver Strike and the slam. Previously, it only cost the energy for the slam. Wow, okay, so that's a big change. I had no idea that it actually only costed you the slam when you would do the zoom melee, the all for one there. Or, no, not all for one. I messed up my reference. The one for all there. The one for all melee actually only costed the slam, which is crazy. I had no idea. So now that it costs both, I suspect that the super will not last nearly as long. I'm kind of like thinking, shouldn't the base duration have been tweaked? But I think there's a lot more cost brought into this super now for its main mobility methods and its method of attack. So I'm gonna have to wait and see how long it feels like it's lasting in game. So before saying that should be a thing or the duration should be brought down. So those are I think that's a pretty substantial nerf. Again, over double for the one for all there. We have the heavy slam costing both the one for all and the heavy attack when done together. So that's gonna help. That's gonna hurt the duration a lot too. And then for Shiver Strike, increased downward velocity applied to Shiver Striking players when they're slowed to pull them out of the air more strongly. Great. So before, what would happen is you would just go flying and like out of the park. Now I think it's going to try and keep you on the ground. So that's good. It's not going to be one hit as frequently. You're not going to go flying into walls, hopefully, as frequently. So that's good. Nothing about the neutral game, which is interesting. I still think the neutral game of this class is pretty insane. I guess Shiver Strike is the neutral game, so that's one thing. But I feel like that shouldn't have been happening to begin with. I'm not sure, though. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But for now, I think these are some pretty good changes. Warlock. Let's see. Winter's Wrath. Improved tracking of Winter's Wrath projectiles. Now tracking strength decays from its max value over 10 seconds instead of 2.2 seconds. Okay, so Winter's Wrath super is going to track harder. Okay, interesting. That might be very scary. Yeah, Oz's. The slide, exactly. I think that neutral game, you know, it's worth looking at perhaps, but not in the context of other classes also having insane movement, which is not false. So perhaps leaving the neutral game with the Titan is okay right now. So yeah, I think that's a potentially big buff to Winter's Wrath. I thought those things had some pretty generous tracking already and some pretty generous AoE, and I think that this super could become very scary. Increase the size of the Warlock super projectile's proximity det from 1.5 to 1.65, so a very small bump. But another thing that I thought, again, was already like, wow, that was already scary to begin with. It's going to get just a little bit better. Okay. The proximity detonation now starts at its largest and scales down to 40% over time. Okay, that's interesting. Overall buff to the super. I think the super might be quite menacing. Yeah, I think the super really, like, right now it struggles against Top Tree Dawnblade, you know, kind of zooming through the air. I think now this really might be able to counter that. The super might very well be incredibly strong. Penumbral Blast. Decreased penumbral blast damage against players from 80 to 30 damage. PvE damage is unchanged. Awesome. This is really, really great. I think this is phenomenal. It's a freezing melee. It freezes on impact. It's a short freeze, which I like, of course, but they're bringing down the damage to be like tickle damage. I'm actually really disappointed reading this, that the shurikens are keeping 65 damage, which I think is still way too significant, especially when with the potency of slow. I think you can argue that the slow effect on the shurikens for some players feels more detrimental than the short freeze of this melee sometimes. And it's going to 30 damage. I don't know, guys. I think that I'm actually disappointed that the shurikens are staying at 65 damage. I don't know. Like, reading this, like, they should have both, in my opinion, been brought down to that level of damage. Yeah, I really love this, but it makes me really dislike the Hunter changes. Not hit as hard as they perhaps should have been, in my opinion. Ice Flare Bolts. Let's move on here. Fix a bug where Ice Flare Bolts would continuously try to switch targets. Okay, that's reasonable. Increase target acquisition range of Ice Flare Bolts by 33%. Okay, so they're going to start trying to track a little bit more. That's probably not going to make a big difference. What I'm thinking is that's just going to help it seek its target a little bit more. Which it probably had some inconsistencies with, judging by that bug. Increase turning speed of Ice Flare Bolts so they can move more effectively and hit nearby targets. Yeah, this all just seems like Ice Flare Bolts were just doing some weird wonky stuff, and they're just trying to fix it, so that's fine. Might have to start maining Warlock, true. Chaos Reach, okay. Oh, wow, okay, Chaos Reach nerf. This is a surprise, because this is not Stasis, but it snuck its way into the Warlock changes. Decrease the amount of super energy refunded when canceling Chaos Reach early. I love this. I really, really like this. I think something needs to be done about Geomags, but this is very good. This is very nice. It doesn't solve the problems with Trials, in my opinion, but at least is a nice band-aid over something that kind of plagues the whole game, which is the super meta game. The regaining super energy as much as possible, opening pick with a super, 10 intellect shenanigans. This is really, really good. I'm really happy to see this. And this will also affect when you get shot out of your Chaos Reach. It'll probably not save as much energy. I'm really excited to see what this looks like. So far, so for the Warlock Stasis, it's got some buffs and nerfs. Ice Flare Bolts just look like bug changes, so they perform a little bit more as intended. That's good. So I think that's kind of, I'm neutral on this. Winter's Wrath seems like it's going to be like an ultimate roaming shutdown super. I think it's going to lack the movement. It's going to be probably easy to snipe in most cases. It's going to be slow. It's going to be clunky, but it is going to be a roaming tank that just traps on other supers. You know, so I think this is going to potentially be quite insane. It's going to be, again, its weakness is always going to be its movement, but now it's got the power to really counter nearly every super in the game, I think, which is interesting. Penumbral Blast, really love the changes. Like I said, I think this is great. I think this is amazing. Status effects, significant ones. I don't believe should be dealing significant damage. That is awesome. Chaos Reach changes also. A lot of people would agree that this was much needed. So I think this is good. Okay. General changes. Oh, okay. General stasis changes. This is nice. I see wow, this is a lot of stuff. This is dope. Okay. Dustfield grenades. Reduced how strongly Dustfield grenade pulls players inwards, effectively reducing the pull range from 9.5 to around 6 meters. PvE unchanged. Cool. PvE gets to still get its cool potency. PvP, you're not going to be sucked so hard by the suck grenade. Now it's going to be a lot smaller of a radius, which is excellent. That is fantastic. It felt like a colossal amount of range before. Like it was unavoidable. You could not play around it. It literally would just suck you from anywhere. It was just insane. Reduced slow stacks applied to players by the grenade detonation from 20 to 10. Okay, so less slow stacks over time, which is great. And then of course that's unchanged in PvE, which is great. That's really good. These Dustfield grenades aren't going to freeze you as quickly, and you're probably right now, I think you can get out of them somewhat regularly before they freeze, but right before they freeze you. Now, I think this is really going to be more of a tool just to slow people. It's not going to be so much of a, hey, I'm going to freeze you because I placed this well, sucked you from an eon away, and then you're stuck. I think this is more just a zoning slow tool now, which is good. We're going to have to wait until, you know, we can actually play with this and see how it is, but so far, I think that these are some good changes. Reduce the slow stacks applied to players on each tick of the grenade from 10 to even better. Again, like this is awesome. So grenade detonation, throwing the grenade at someone. So let's say you're shotgunning, you're pulling someone out, or you're trying to limit their movement. It applies 10 stacks on impact, then 5 stacks every tick. I really cannot see this freezing you on a regular basis anymore. I really think this is just a slow tool. 100% just a kind of like a slow field. Not at all like a freezing tool. I don't think this is going to freeze on a regular basis unless you're maybe stacking this if they still stack, or with other slow effects. Maybe it'll just be a nice little catalyst to other slow effects to stack up and try and long freeze people. I think that's really good. Adjusted the UI presentation of the slowed status to display slowed stacks as X out of 100 instead of X out of 10 to increase readability when adding slow stack amounts that are fewer than 10. Awesome. That's good. Scaling to be more specific of when you can freeze someone. It's going to take 100 stacks now rather than 10, even though that's the same thing. It's just represented differently. All right. Stasis crystals. Reduced crystal shatter damage against players from 85 max 55 minimum to 55 max 25 minimum. PvE unchanged. Sorry, can't speak. This is pretty good. This means that essentially, I don't think a lot of people are using this as like, hey, let me place this here and then shoot it and do damage to you. Sometimes maybe. What I see from this is shatterdive, of course. The whole, you know, the signature, I guess, play that I make a lot is putting it down and immediately shatterdiving that wombo combo. I don't think this means you aren't going to be able to do it anymore. I think this means that you are going to have to place your grenade immaculately. Like, far better. You cannot be off. I don't think you're going to be able to be off much at all. Right? Shatterdive, especially aggressively, is going to be much harder to pull off. I really don't think with this, you're going to be able to pull off aggressive entry shatterdives anymore, unless you're just trying to cause chaos. Unless you're really placing your grenade insanely well, maybe to the point where you're freezing them anyways. So, like, what's the point? So, I'm really happy about that. I think that's good. Shatterdive, that Shatterdive wombo combo is going to be much more, I think, of a defensive tool. Like, someone is very clearly just rushing you, has kind of like very predictable movement, and you just Shatterdive them and get them out of your face. So I think that's fine. This is a good change. this is probably going to leave people weak more often than not, so you can get some damage on them, cause some chaos, and then clean up. So I like that. Whisper of Chains. Oh, this one hurts because I know how strong it was. Oh, but it's only in super. Okay, reduced Whisper of Chains damage resistance bonus while in super from 25 to 5%. Damage resistance when not in super is unchanged. Cool. Okay, so not in super, unchanged. We still in business. Whisper of Chains with the Glacier Grenades is still insane. I've been riding this for a while. I think it's nuts. And then, of course, this only affects damage from other Guardians, so PvP only. I'm really happy to see this. I don't think it should work in super at all. I think even take away the 5% personally. But this was just adding on to the Titan super damage resistance and other supers damage resistance. I think that's silly that it gave such a significant amount to that. It's great to see that this changed, but although I think that you could probably even tone that 5% down to none. I don't think it needs it. Whisper of Torment. Fix a bug where players can continuously proc Whisper of Torment while standing inside an opponent's barricade. Yeah, this was a thing. Good to see that fixed. Stasis fragment quests. Significantly reduce objective completion values for all Crucible fragment quests. Cool. Nice. If any issues are found over the next week, some of these changes may be delayed to a future date. Check out the player support report below for more details, and stay tuned for Bungie help for more details. For updates on the timelines. Okay, so they're saying that it's scheduled for, I think they said 2 weeks from now, but it might be delayed if there's too many bugs. So they're probably working really damn hard to get, like, these are a lot of changes and significant changes. So we always have to remember that these guys are working as hard as they can. It's still a pandemic. To get all of these out in hot fixes. So, you know, if it does get delayed, it's sad, but the right changes are coming. I think this is awesome.